Good day. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. You're watching The Pipeline today on January 6, 2021. I'm joined today in the Western Standard studio by Western Standard's podcast editor and columnist, Cory Morgan. How you doing, Cory?
Good.
You're looking slick with your COVID haircut?
Oh, yes. It's getting bigger by the day.
Indeed. Also joining us from beautiful British Columbia, Western Standard news editor, Dave Naylor.
Derek, good afternoon, gentlemen.
That's still morning there, isn't
it? For a few more minutes. You can't tell, the sky's so dark anyways.
True. Can't tell the time of day or the season in BC. And Ken Grafton, our Ottawa bureau chief, joining us from the Lions Den. How you doing, Ken?
Good, Derek. How you doing?
Fantastic. Well, we've got an exciting show for you today. The great snowbird scandal of 2021 continues to claim victims, but it's now taken on other dimensions. In Alberta in particular, it has virtually consumed the government. It's brought it almost to its knees, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the very interesting case of Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi. We were wondering where he was. He has something to say about everything, and he was strangely quiet. Now we know why. He was caught with his chief of staff and other staffers being in Hawaii. Not himself in Hawaii, but his chief of staff in Hawaii. No consequences, nothing. And the left seems to have shut the F up pretty quickly when that happened. We're going to talk about it. In Alberta, boy, the Alberta government's meltdown continues. News just breaking right now that Alberta Premier Jason Kenney has moved his office into the former throne room of the Sky Palace, built by Alison Redford. Probably not a good look. We're going to talk about that and see if we're to discuss, is this a fair issue, or are we just being a little oversensitive right now? And of course, where in the world is Justin Trudeau? Someone else we haven't heard a lot from.
I don't mind.
Okay, it's nice. It's nice. But we're going to get into it there. So we're going to start right probably about a kilometer and a half away from the Western Standard studios here at the Calgary City Hall. Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi, the latest victim of the great snowbird scandal of 2021. Dave, why don't you tell us what's happening?
Well, it's council starting to arrive back from holidays, I guess. Derek, I hope the audience can hear you better than I can. I was only getting about one every 3 words there. But yeah, it's turned out that Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi's chief of staff was one of the people that worked part of her holidays in Hawaii, I guess. She flew out despite recommendations from the Provincial Health Authority against non-essential travel. The lady's name is Devery Corbin. She's been with the city since 2012 and has been with the mayor's office, I believe, since 2018-19. Another member of Nenshi's staff, an office administrator, also went to Hawaii. As you said, Derek, Nenshi's been awfully quiet last couple of days. And he admitted when he met with the press yesterday, he admitted when Kenney held his bumbling press conference last Friday, trying to explain the UCP snowbird scandal, he admitted that he was, quote, yelling at the TV in frustration because he was so angry about it. But I guess when the shoe's on the other foot, you suddenly lose your moral high ground. Nenshi says there will be no sanctions against these 2 staffers. Ward 5 Alderman George Hall put a public letter out, just published on the Western Standard website. Derek, he represents Ward 5, and it's one of the hardest hit areas of the city in terms of COVID. He says it's absolutely ludicrous. Mayor Nenshi waited until yesterday to release the details of his wayward travelers. He said it's been the big topic in the news, all the news headlines for 5 days, and he's 100% right about that. And he says this news should have come out from Nenshi way earlier. he also points out that the restrictions seem to be good for one, but not good for the other parts of Alberta society. He says those with fiscal means don't seem to be suffering as much as those with who are on the lower end of the economic scale. So lots of controversy. Calgary City Hall at the moment, and there's probably no happier person about that than Premier Jason Kenney.
Yeah, I think the real reason Naheed Nenshi was screaming at the TV isn't because he was angry about the whole situation. He was angry that he can't pontificate and lecture anybody else about it. I mean, if there is someone doing something on the other side of the planet that he doesn't agree with, you're going to hear about it. Sorry, if anyone in Ottawa or in BC there is working with your hands, it's making a lot of background noise. So just please try to keep your outside noise to a minimum. Absolutely, it was incredible. The man who pontificates about the time of day, if he thinks people care about it, had nothing to say about this, and then he waits this long. I think it was a smart political tactic. Obviously not advised. That political tactic was probably not advised by his chief of staff, because that chief of staff was in Hawaii at the time. But it was a smart tactic. Kenney takes all the blowback. He waits until the scandal is maybe, I think it's still pretty hot, but it's not white blazing hot anymore. It's now kind of entering the second phase. And he does this. The interesting thing to me, though, is you're watching social media. Left and right were united in rage about this scandal against the Kenney government. NDP supporters, UCP supporters, and people on the right who aren't necessarily UCP, everyone's pissed. But as soon as Nenshi came out, I think half of Alberta's internet connection went down.
Yeah.
I think Cory, tell us about, why don't you get into that?
Sure. I mean, well, we're getting to see such a walking, talking example of the double standard that's out there in social media and in the mainstream media. They were more than happy to dance all over and beat the hell out of Kenney, and Kenney earned it with that mess with these guys going on out there. But I mean, as you said, with Nenshi, I mean, he was in the pack in December saying, if Jason Kenney does not crack down on citizens and lock down, we, the city, are going to do it ourselves. Now, Head Nenshi, with his stay home, save lives in his Twitter profile, sat quietly while Kenney saw the worst controversy of his term so far, and knew damn well his chief of staff was suntanning, and sat on it to let Kenney eat the bulk of the abuse for this, and then came out afterwards, and it's true because he knows the media. They're going to treat Nenshi with kid gloves. This issue's dead now. It was Kenney's best hope. I mean, otherwise, aside from a war breaking out or something that could dominate the news scroll, having somebody left-wing being caught doing the same thing, suddenly the media, I got other things to talk about now. I'll move on.
Now it's time to move on from this issue.
I mean, and I'll bring somebody up. I don't name people off, but Mike Morrison, everybody's beloved little activist on Twitter, was still going after Kenney all afternoon and dead silent about Nenshi. So he didn't stop on Kenney, but he just pretended the Nenshi thing didn't even happen. So yes, I think the Travelgate or the Snowbird scandal is going to fade away because, well, the mainstream is going to stop covering it, and it's impacted one of their darlings.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible, the lack of attention paid by most of the media have covered that this happened with it. Sorry, Ken or Dave, you need to mute your phones and stop making noise, please, or we're going to have to mute you guys, please. The media have covered it, but not with the same breathlessness. I'm about to mute some of our people in other offices. Mute all your other stuff. They have just not covered it with the same breathlessness, the same rage that I think deservedly went to the Kenney government over this. But as soon as it's this, really not much. No, just nothing.
Nothing to see here.
So story's over, folks. Now that Nenshi's been caught up in it, it's time to move on from other things. Or as Justin Trudeau would say, this is a learning moment for all of us. So, well, we're going to stay in Alberta here before we move on to Justin Trudeau and how we can all learn from this. Really just not the headline Kenney wants to see right now. We all remember, it's funny, virtually every Albertan knows what the Sky Palace is. We know what that means. And now Jason Kenney is I'm going to put it to Dave here to give us an update. He did not move his residence into the Sky Palace, as Alison Redford had intended to do before her regime collapsed, but he has moved his office in. Dave, why don't you tell us more about that?
Derek, this story is just breaking right now in Edmonton. Jason Kenney's office
sorry, we are. One of you has got something on, and I'm gonna mute both of you if I don't get you guys to turn off your dinging and electric devices. I'm sorry, it's disturbing to our listeners.
Nothing on here.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, well, it looks like
It's Dave.
This story's. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can also hear your dinging phone. Please mute it.
Okay, the news is coming in on all fronts here, guys. Sorry about that. Jason Kenney's office in the legislature is apparently undergoing some renovations. So they decided the smart thing to do was, hey, Alison Redford's old Sky Palace office is open. Why don't we just move into there? So that's apparently what he's done. If you remember way back in 2013, Sky Palace was one of the things that forced Redford out of office. She was seen, along with all her airplane rides with her daughter, as having a culture of entitlement. And in fact, when Rachel Notley came to power, she refused to work in the Sky office, calling it, quote, a politically radioactive zone and a toxic symbol of entitlement. In
I think it's very much Alberta's Chernobyl.
Yes, exactly. Just to give you some of the totals on what Redford was looking at spending, she wanted to spend $45,000 just on drapes and $43,000 on wall and porcelain tiles, and $26,000 just for painting. And of course, no office can be complete without a changing room, and Redford was having one built for both herself and her daughter at the time, and that was going to cost taxpayers $14,000. So clearly there was a revolt back then, and the optics just look bad on this one. The timing looks bad, Derek. They're going through the UCP snowbird scandal. Now the NDP will be jumping on this as just another political culture showing that they're entitled and they don't care about voters. So really, really bad timing for this one.
Yeah, it's not a good look. I remember when I was at the legislature, just so people know, the Sky Palace is a penthouse, a luxury penthouse that was built on top of something called the Federal Building. The Federal Building was a very swanky building that most of the MLAs, all the opposition, and some of the government MLAs had their offices in. You're very fortunate to work in that building. It is very nice. But on top of it, Alison Redford, without proper financial authorization, had ordered the construction of this luxury residential penthouse. When the PCs lost power, it was a given that it'd be a Wildrose or NDP, whoever took over. That was not going to continue. The project was kiboshed. I remember this was not an official government plan, but I had discussed with Brian Jean at the time, towards the end of the 2015 campaign. We kind of chuckled about it, but it was, I think, a real possibility that if Wildrose had won, we were going to stage the world's greatest press conference. We were going to take a giant crane with a massive wrecking ball and on live television blow the Sky Palace up. Not the whole Federal Building, but the penthouse. We were going to literally blow the Sky Palace up. Obviously, Wildrose didn't win. It came in a strong second, came back from the dead in 2015. The NDP won. The NDP, I didn't blame them for not blowing it up, but they just essentially turned it into kind of a conference space. They didn't really use it for much. Mostly, it was just a place where the NDP MLAs could go to smoke. Technically illegally smoking on government property, but it was they were on the kind of the terrace on the outside of the penthouse. I wasn't angry that they were smoking on government property. I was just angry that the Wildrose MLAs weren't allowed to go and smoke illegally on government property. That was my only problem with it. But other than entitling themselves to a private smoking area, the NDP never really used the Sky Palace for anything. But now we're learning that it's been converted into an office. I don't think it's. I want to get your opinion, Cory. I personally don't think it's quite comparable to turning this into a luxury residential penthouse, custom designed for Kenney and his family, however that is. But it's probably a bad look. What do you think the politics of this is?
Yeah, no, I think the motivation is probably just, well, we've got some space, we can utilize it, let's get it rolling. But again, it's forgetting, it seems. It's a bit of a tone deafness. Symbolism matters, whether it's fair or not. And we've seen so much of it this last few months. And I'd like to keep going back to the old Bev Oda $16 orange juice disaster. It's the little things that drive the citizens and the electors crazy. When they feel like they're contributing and the people who are asking them to contribute aren't walking the talk. All this, we're all in this together. What a line now that's so sour coming from so many of these hypocritical politicians. And Jason Kenney's really taken a beating from his populist front with the whole vacation, the snowbird scandal, and Wild Rose supporting people from the past who supported the merger of them, but were reticent, worried about the old PC taint coming in. See more of that coming in, and there's no name more toxic still to this day with the PCs than Alison Redford. So I mean, it's just, this isn't going to be a government crushing episode or anything like that, but they've really got to work on their optics and think about every step they do, because people like us are going to be on their case.
Well, at least we know where Jason Kenney is now. He's refused to come out and speak to Albertans or to the press since the, I think, widely acknowledged disaster of a press conference on January 1st, where he refused to do anything about the snowbird scandal. Now we know where he is. He's in the Sky Palace. I don't know if I'm advising him. If I'm his interim chief of staff, I don't know if I'd advise him to come out. If I was a political advisor, I might tell him, yeah, just shut up, stay quiet, let
the news cycle move on.
That's probably what I do. Although I don't think they have that choice because, and we'll probably discuss this on tomorrow's show, but the government has to make a decision very soon on if they're renewing the lockdown or not. And boy, I would not want to be in the UCP government right now making a decision about if they have the moral authority to lock Albertans down for another month. That doesn't sound fun. Speaking of a great moral authority, we're going to talk about where in the world is Justin Trudeau. I think this story was yesterday. Ken will clarify if it was yesterday or the day before. We were on this. Most of the media aren't really touching it. But Justin Trudeau has issued a statement from on high decreeing that politicians who are traveling right now are bad. But we haven't really seen much about where he is. But we're going to go to our Ottawa bureau chief, Ken Grafton, who's going to put some meat on the bone here and update us on where in the world is Justin Trudeau.
Well, I guess that's the question, Derek. And this story, as you mentioned, hasn't been covered widely in Ottawa or any other location. It arose out of a tweet that came from someone at the International Airport in Barbados who reported seeing what he described as the Prime Minister's jet. And, from that, we can take it's part of the VIP fleet that's run by the Royal Canadian Air Force. So it must have had the markings on it, and this person had tweeted, and I think there were actually more than one person involved in that, didn't identify who was on the plane. So this is where the question, where is Justin Trudeau, came from, or where is he? It was noted subsequently that the plane didn't originate in Ottawa, but in, I forget the location, Puerto Rico, somewhere else in the Caribbean. But that could have been an interim stop, so we really don't know the origin of the flight when it departed Canada. So these planes, the VIP flight, are used for VIPs on government business, and it had to be someone with some horsepower in the government to warrant flying on, in essence, a private jet to the Caribbean and back. The Prime Minister's office issued a statement the same day denying that the Prime Minister was in Barbados. And a CTV journalist confirmed that he was, in fact, on Harrington Lake at the Prime Minister's official summer residence. Harrington Lake, for those who don't know, is in the Gatineau Park area of Quebec, just north of Ottawa, about 25 minutes or so by automobile. And so that's where he was reportedly over Christmas, was at Harrington Lake yesterday. His official itinerary on the government website noted that he was at Rideau Cottage for a meeting at Rideau Cottage. The previous day, he had a virtual meeting on his calendar, but there was no physical location attached to that. So it didn't say whether he was at Harrington Lake or Rideau Cottage or somewhere else. And that's really all the information that is out there now. There are people, I gather, from some subsequent tweets that were actually trying to track down inbound flights at the Ottawa airport, and had also researched flight numbers and tail numbers on the internet to try and identify which one of the Challenger jets this was and who was using it. That's all the meat of the story, really, at this point.
So, Ken, I guess he's issued a statement condemning the snowbirds. Right. I mean, we're not going to put hypocrisy beyond him. I mean, the whole story is about hypocrisy, and we're talking about Justin Trudeau here. But putting out a statement condemning it, it seems to be a good sign that he didn't do it. Did Justin Trudeau or his office explicitly deny traveling outside of the country over the last 2 months?
A spokesman from the PMO did make that statement, Derek, that he was not there, or sorry, that he hasn't traveled over Christmas.
Was it just that he didn't go to Barbados, or that he just did not travel?
That he did not travel over the Christmas period. That was the statement issued by the PMO.
Well, I mean, it's not beyond a government to lie, but I mean, if they have put out a statement saying it, that would be a wildly risky move if it's a lie. So it would. If I'm a betting man here, I'd say he probably didn't travel in that case. I mean,
someone else is missing, though, Derek.
That's it. So if we can say that the Challenger jet was in Barbados, well, there's not many people who use the Challenger jet. It'd be the Prime Minister, it'd be the Foreign Affairs, or what do they call it now? The Global Affairs Minister, Global Canada Minister, whatever the hell it's called, or the Chief of Defense Staff, so the head of the Canadian Armed Forces. Very few people would really have access to those Challenger jets.
Your average backbencher.
No. The MP from Timbuktu is not going to have access to a Challenger jet. That is a major operation. It's only for top VIPs in the Canadian government. I'd like to know who that is. I
believe, Derek, that, sorry to interrupt, I believe that the Deputy Prime Minister would have access to those flights as well. And Freeland has been noticeably quiet since before Christmas. So that question hasn't reached the media yet. But where is Chrystia Freeland might be an equally interesting question to pursue.
Yeah, well, Ken, we've got you in Ottawa. If you can track this down, I got a steak dinner with your name on it.
Well, I'll hold you to that, Derek.
I've got family in Ottawa, so I might engage in some unsanctioned travel to get out there, and we'll have a steak if you could land that story and figure out the mystery of the missing Challenger jet.
Sounds good.
Very good. Well, before we go today, I want to again thank everyone who is a Western Standard member for your support. If you're not yet a member, please go right now to westernstandardonline.com, click on membership. If you support a free and independent Western media that doesn't take guff from left or right, we just report what we can find. Our opinion definitely falls on one side of the things, but we got guys like Dave Naylor and Ken Grafton. I think Dave's trying to talk, but he's got his mic muted. Yeah, your mic is muted, Dave. And that was not me. Okay, well, in any case, We appreciate everyone's support. Right now, we are crowdsourcing a major poll. We have contracted Main Street Research. They are one of the very top polling firms in Canada, eminently credible, but it's a very expensive poll. We're trying to figure out what Albertans think about things right now. This poll is just going to be in Alberta, so if you're outside of Alberta, well, you can kick in if you like, but it's not necessary. But if you're in Alberta, where we're polling right now, how do Albertans feel about the Great Snowbird scandal of 2021? Do they think there needs to be additional actions for accountability around this scandal? Should there be resignations or not from UCP MLAs? We want to know. Is there going to be a change in how people intend to vote? Are people angry, but they're going to just go back to voting NDP or UCP, or is there going to be wider fallout, either support going to the NDP or rightwards to something like Wild Rose? We want to figure this stuff out. Also, we are going to poll the Calgary mayoral race. There's been no polls right now about how Nenshi is going to do against his primary opponent, Jeremy Farkas, or some of the other lesser-known candidates. We want to poll that, and we've already we've contracted it. We've signed the contract. Please make sure the Western Standard doesn't go bankrupt by funding this big giant poll. We need you to kick in. So if you can, please go to westernstandardonline.com/donate-poll/. Or you go in the comments section and you'll see we've posted the link right into there. We greatly appreciate your help to make sure we can fund a poll like this. We don't accept a penny from the government, media bailouts. We have to do this with your support. But thank you all very much for watching. Thank you, Cory, Ken, Dave, for joining us. We appreciate all of your time. Godspeed.
Thanks, Derek.